You're listening to the B&H Photography Podcast. For over 40 years, B&H has been the professional source for photography, video, audio, and more. For your favorite gear, news, and reviews, visit us at bnh.com or download the B&H app to your iPhone or Android device. Now here's your host, Alan Weitz.
Greetings and welcome to the B&H Photography Podcast. Before we begin, a quick reminder to take a moment and rate us and leave a review on iTunes. We do appreciate the feedback. Today, John Harris and I will be speaking with Shawn Steiner, who is a photographer and filmmaker and one of the senior technical writers here at B&H. And we'll also be speaking with Josh Pomponio, who is also a filmmaker and photographer and part of the sales force here at B&H Photo. Today's topic is 4K. 4K. What is the big deal with 4K? It's the biggest deal right now in a lot of consumer cameras. You can get it in your phone. You can get 4K in point-and-shoot cameras, mirrorless cameras, DSLRs, my refrigerator, and as Jason said, his lawnmower gets it as well. So everything has 4K, but are they all equal? Is it an equal playing field? Can you get truly high-quality video out of a phone or out of a point and shoot, or do you really need to step up to a mid-range consumer camera? To start the show, Shawn, what is 4K? What's the big deal?
4K at its most basic is defined purely by resolution, and it's either UHD 4K or ultra high def, which is 3840 by 2160, or the more cinema DCI 4K, which is 4096 by 2160.
Okay, so one is for professional use and one is consumer. Is that correct? Fair assessment?
UHD is considered more of a consumer format.
Okay.
Because DCI is more of a projection or like cinema style because it's a little wider.
Okay.
But really, they're both pretty close.
Gotcha. Okay. So we had 720, then we went to 1080, now it's 4K. What have been the advantage? What's the big jump here? What are the benefits?
Well, the benefit's obviously just the higher resolution, so you have more detail, a crisper image, and now that we have an ability to view this on more consumer TVs, screens, even cell phones nowadays some of them have 4K screens. So now that we can see it, we get a much richer, more detailed picture, and along with it, some of the 4K formats include wider color gamuts as well. So we're seeing an improvement overall in resolution, detail, and color.
Okay, here's my question. My phone shoots 4K. My point and shoot shoots 4K. And there are cameras that cost tens of thousands of dollars that shoot 4K. 4K, what is it? What is the difference between my phone and, say, just a prosumer camera that you'd buy here in the store that shoots 4K?
The main difference, I would say, would be control. So if you pick up a $10,000 camera, you can choose almost everything about it. Resolution, codecs, frame rates, up to like...
Codecs, can you define that?
Codec is basically a compression format or style, just how the camera actually processes the video and saves it.
Okay, thank you. Okay. What about image quality between each of these? I mean, obviously a phone has a very small sensor and a prosumer camera has larger sensors. Is it as big a difference as it is with still? I know with a still camera, if I have a micro four thirds, full frame, APS-C point and shoot, I could see the differences. And what about with 4K video between these devices? Is it as big a difference?
It certainly can be. I don't know if it's as big a difference all the time. It just tends to be, if you have a smartphone, you're very limited in control and what features it has. And then if you have a Red, you're going to have sky's the limit, raw video and everything. Not necessarily sensor size making the biggest difference, although it does have a huge impact.
Do you see the differences in shadows and highlights as much as you would with still imaging?
You definitely can, especially since on low smartphones and stuff, you're working with an 8-bit codec, which means that you're very limited in your gamut, like a JPEG versus a RAW. Mm-hmm. So if you're shooting with a Red with a higher bit depth, then you have more information, more color, and you can pull more out of that. But if you have a smartphone or point and shoot or even mirrorless and DSLR are limited, then you're not going to be able to pull your highlights and shadows as far.
Okay, gotcha.
So Josh, do you have any, do you agree? Are you on board here with everything Shawn's saying? Or
yeah, everything he's saying is right on the money in terms of specs. In terms of actual use though, I don't know.
Kind of the underlying question of this podcast is, why is 4K in a point and shoot camera? Mm-hmm. And is there a reason for 4K to be in a point and shoot camera? And if there is a reason, what is that reason? And can you really utilize what 4K has to offer in the form factor of a point and shoot camera.
And can I qualify that a little bit by adding to that? As Shawn brought up, it has to do with control between a lot of these cameras. At what point, at what level, do you now have a camera that you can start adding, I guess, peripherals to them for better audio or control or whatever? At what point, like my phone will do 4K, a lot of point and shoots do 4K, but at what point along that food chain do you finally get a camera that is controllable to a point where it's a consumer camera, but you can do serious stuff with it?
I think as soon as you can start adding lenses to it, then you're getting more control, because you're able to then control the lighting. You're getting more shallow to the field, which is what a lot of filmmakers want. They want that, want to shoot everything at 1.4, that background very blurry. And then that allows you to kind of think differently and get, better lighting. There's more to getting a good image than just the sensor or the codec. Lenses matter, lighting matters. Even story matters. I think people forget that in this kind of day and age where everyone looks at text and specs and things like that. People forget the story part is just as important.
You're talking crazy. That's just no, that doesn't make any sense.
What a concept.
But for example, then you have like the Cybershot, the RX10, Mark III now,
right?
Which by most acclaim, it has a very good lens, but it's a fixed lens. It's not coming off. You can't change it. Are you going to be able to do something with that? Is someone who takes that out and tries to shoot, even if it's a clip, not a movie, let's say, are they going to be able to get good results with that?
I think the talent has to be there behind the camera. The camera is only a tool. If you have a good imagination and if you have good everything else, then yeah, the camera can get anything for you, but it doesn't have to be a 4K camera. Sometimes it could be a phone. Sometimes it could be anything else,
No, we get that. I mean, you need the talent, you need some thought process behind it. So let's assuming that's there or it isn't there. Is someone who has the talent and wants to make something, are they ever going to buy an RX10?
Probably not. They're going to, if only for egotistical reasons, they're going to want to get the better camera. They're going to get some of the interchangeable lenses. They want to get a more name brand or a recognized brand camera.
And the flip side of that is someone who has an RX10 or a similar camera, and even if they're not intending to make a great piece, but they do want to put something nice together, let's say for their kids' show or their soccer game, whatever it happens to be, will they be able to do it with that camera?
Yeah, probably.
Yeah. And where would they end up screening it to get the?
They're probably just going to be watching it on their phone or their laptop. A lot of TVs, there are 4K TVs out there, or UHD TVs, I should say, but not everyone has one.
Right.
That's
Also,
the problem.
when 4K first started making its big debut, there was very few devices to actually watch them on TV.
Right.
If you go to the store now, are there more viewing options for 4K?
Yeah, for sure. Actually, at the Panasonic kiosk, which is where I am primarily, there's a 4K tablet on display that has all 4K content that is shot by Panasonic cameras. So you're seeing, it's a little bit higher end of a tablet, but there are options there that aren't just the TV.
So 4K is also driving other product sales.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay.
But on a tablet, we're talking about the size. Are you going to notice a difference? Are you going to really feel the difference?
Yeah, there's a video that we play often. It's attractive to consumers because it's not a big special effects kind of video. It's a baby in a pool splashing water around, and it's shot in 4K, and it's really clear. People actually stop and they see it, and I think that kind of video actually attracts more customers than this like a big fancy production because it's real. It's something that they can shoot themselves. It's just their kids lying around. And that's who are buying the kind of entry-level 4K cameras.
So you don't need a large screen necessarily to see the difference.
No, not really.
Yeah. And Shawn, could you go back again and talk again the difference between UHD and
DCI 4K.
DCI 4K?
So,
Can you?
Yeah, UHD is the consumer format effectively.
Okay. What does it stand for? Do you know? Ultra high D.
Ultra high definition.
high def,
yeah. And basically, it just fills the 16:9 aspect ratio that we've come to know for all TVs since we've moved to high definition. And basically, it's just double full HD, which means that it has 4 times the resolution. DCI is more of a projection format. I don't want to say that because they project in even wider and wider, but it's just a little bit wider, and it gives you more of that cinema look.
So the aspect ratio is wider?
Yeah,
is that what you mean?
It's close to 17:9. Not exactly, but that's just an approximation.
Right. Okay. Huh. And getting back to what Alan talked about with peripherals and stuff, can you? I mean, I remember when I was working over on the writing team and trying to get my head around, what you needed in order to really get 4K out of your cameras, and often you need an external recorder. Is that still the case for, let's say, I don't know, I guess I noticed the Nikon DL line is coming out now as 4K, and that's, to me, looks like it's just a point-and-shoot camera. You know, it can fit almost in your pocket.
They are.
And can you take that memory card out of that camera and expect to have a cinema quality image?
You can get one. Yes.
You can. Okay.
I'm going to go
You were
back.
trying to qualify that as you said, yes, you can. What do you have to do to get that, though? Is it out of the box, or do you have to poke around a bit? Play a little bit?
Going back to Josh's point, you got to know what you're doing. You're
Okay.
working with like a smaller format camera, but if you do your lighting right, you can make it look just as good as an A7R2, for example.
Okay, well, that's an interesting point.
And what about just as good as a Red camera? Or, I mean, what's the sensor size on those cinema cameras, like a Red camera, for example, or a Sony, or a Canon even, like the C300s?
Cinema cameras have standardized around Super 35, which is very close to APS-C because of the smaller type format of the 35 millimeter
Okay,
film
so
strip.
smaller than full frame.
Yeah.
Yeah, even on a Red camera, on a Red cinema?
Well,
then?
full frame really only applies to photography because
True, yeah.
cinema 35 millimeter film is ran through the camera differently than how film is run through a film camera.
Exactly.
For a photography
Yeah,
camera.
that's correct. Yeah.
Yeah, you can definitely get a great image. A lot of the 4K cameras coming out aren't point and shoot size sensors. They're 1 inch and larger. Panasonic even has 4/3 inch sensors, which are relatively large for a point and shoot. So it's definitely nicer to have a larger sensor. And the fact that they are larger allows you to get a better image out of them right away. But you still have to know what you're doing regardless.
So it seems to me that you have, while lighting is always important, because photography, video still is about light, but it's more critical to get better quality the smaller the sensor, because I guess you have to be a little more exacting. You have less latitude, is what I'm gathering.
Exactly. You just have less room to like push and pull and post. And
Okay.
From what you're saying, though, it's not just hype. I mean, 4K and a point and shoot. It's really something that if you want to, you can utilize it to a degree.
There's advantages there that you can take you can use for
Yeah.
I remember when I was in college, 4K was just kind of coming out, and that was the big thing. It was like 4K, 4K, 4K. But there was no place there to watch 4K. There's no 4K TVs weren't there yet. So the big thing that we were kind of fed in class is that you want to shoot 4K, but then export to 1080 or 720, because then you're losing less resolution. And I think people are still doing that today because, you know, when you're looking online, not really on your computer screen, you're still not getting 4K. You're uploading to YouTube, Vimeo. You're still compressing a little bit. So if you're doing more higher end work, it's good to shoot with that higher resolution to color grade and then export it to a little bit lower resolution, because you're losing less than if you start at 1080 and then save the
And
1080.
who's going to do that? Let's put it that way. I mean, how much time does that take? And
That takes a while. That's something that only, you know, entry-level professionals and, you know, independent filmmakers, students are going to be doing.
Right.
Your soccer moms, things like that, aren't really going to be taking the time.
I think we should
to do that.
probably get away from this.
Is that a derogatory term? I mean it in sincerity.
No, I understand. It's okay.
Parental unit with video camera. How's
Right,
that?
exactly.
Or a soccer dad. If you
Soccer
like.
dad.
Yeah.
Soccer person. Soccer person.
yes.
Let's just, you know.
But let's say you do want to make your first film, or you want to start down that road. What of these cameras would be valuable to you? Anyone you want to chime in? I mean, at what level could you start? Would you start with one of the Sonys, or even the Panasonics?
Yeah, that's kind of what I was
or-
getting at. If you were serious, like,
Right.
where's the threshold where you're saying, okay, now I can plug in auxiliary mics, I could put in headphones, I could use whatever it is that you need to have the controls that Shawn was referring to, that the bigger cameras have. Again, start playing with them.
Personally, I like the GH4. You know, it's been around for a while.
Panasonic.
Yeah, the Panasonic GH4. And I like it because it's not a large APS-C sensor like, you know, some of the Canons, things like that.
Micro Four
It's
Thirds.
a Micro Four Thirds. And why that's important to me is I can actually use older cinema lenses that cover the 16 millimeter film size plane. And that gives you a kind of a different look than modern lenses give you.
So 16 millimeter movie film is the frames are about the same size as the
It's a
Micro
little
Four
bit
Thirds?
smaller. Some lenses do cover, other lenses don't. That could be another. I mean, you talked about that in a previous podcast. I like the GH4 because the images I've seen that have been graded, color graded, to work on post, really look like film, like actual 35 millimeter cinema film, as opposed to just video. And I think that's an important distinction to make if you're making a project. You wanted it to look like something cinematic and not a television project.
One thing that I really like in terms of entry-level cameras, I would give two options probably. And one of them would be the RX10 or FZ300 type, Sony and Panasonic. Because if you're just starting out and you don't have a collection of lenses already, everything to like put on it or adapt, or you don't really know that much, it gives you everything you need.
Right.
You have a lens that goes from 24 to
600.
200 or 600.
Or longer, yeah.
And you can do everything you want, and you can learn without having to buy a bunch of expensive equipment or anything. And they can also take like mics and everything like that if you want to expand later. And then also, if you just want to jump right in, probably a mirrorless camera like the GH4 or A6300 are also great options. And
I'm hearing a lot about the A6300.
Yeah, I was just going to say that camera keeps coming up.
yeah, they did a great thing. They put it at a great price point, great features, and it's been looking like it's performing really well.
Well, get back to the GH4 for a second. I mean, that was kind of the first mirrorless 4K. Is that true or no?
I believe so. Yeah, it came out I think in 2014.
Is it only 2014?
Yeah.
Okay.
Only 2014.
Yeah, it seems like it's been around for a while though, because it seemed to kind of make a big splash. I mean, and of course we've had the A7 series since, which maybe made a bigger splash. But what's next for Panasonic? How come they haven't like brought out the next one, or what have they brought out? I know there's the GX8 and others.
They brought around essentially mini GH4s with like the G7 and the GX85. I think pretty much all of their line now does 4K, and I think that's what's really great about Panasonic is that it allows everyone to have the newest technology, the newest tools. I like that, anyone that can, I think $500 you can get the ZS60 that shoots 4K, and that could be even like very entry level, for a high school kid who has dreams of making movies. That's what's great about Panasonic is that all their cameras do that now. In terms of what's next, I'm on the rumor sites all the time. The GH5 maybe, who knows? 4K, maybe 6K.
People are waiting for that GH5.
People are waiting for the GH5 because the GH4 is so old. They're wary of buying it now because all the rumors say, oh wait, maybe don't wait.
Right. That's But say for that high school kid, and I know this podcast is primarily about point and shoot cameras and to some degree mirrorless. But if you were that high school kid, wouldn't it be better to, let's say, buy a less expensive DSLR that you could put lenses on and shoot in 1080, as opposed to jumping to 4K and a point and shoot? I mean, is the quality difference in the 4K going to make or break your work? I mean, story aside and talent aside.
Yeah, maybe with the DSLR you can get a 50mm 1.8 for $100, and that will give you a cinematic look. So in that case, maybe but then someone wants to put the newest technology. They want to get the newest technology. They want to keep their head to the ground in terms of what's going on. So that might be the benefit of having even just an entry level point and shoot with 4K.
Okay. We're going to take a short break, and we come back. We're going to speak more with Shawn and Josh about 4K video.
We hope you're enjoying this edition of the B&H Photography Podcast. Send us a tweet at BHPhotoVideo, #BHPhotoPodcast.
We are back. Let's talk a little bit about form factor. It's no big secret that a lighter camera in your hand is a little bit more jiggly, and it's nice to have something with a little bit of heft in there. What about the shapes of these cameras, and are there certain cameras you might want to avoid, or some cameras that you like for whatever reason it might be, as far as how they fit in your hand, how they function, the fluidness of it?
Well, if we start with point and shoots and smartphones are not great form factor wise. You can't hold them right, and you can't really control them at all. Point and shoots are a step above that, where you can start doing stuff, especially when you take the bridge cameras like the RX10.
I notice a lot of the point and shoots that do have 4K have the bridge form factor, which gives you that grip anyway.
Yeah, they definitely started there, which was a great idea. And now that we have them in like an RX100 like camera, it's not great. I'm gonna just straight out admit that. I have an RX100 Mark IV, which it's a phenomenal camera, but you're not going to go running around with that. Where it does do really well is if you need to shove it into a tiny corner in like a car, or if you put it on a stabilizer, you can get like maybe a cheaper, lighter
what do you mean, like
stabilizer.
shove it into a tiny corner of a car? I don't...
Like if you're shooting maybe somebody driving, you might put it like on the windshield
You
or
can
something
use
like
a
that.
big camera.
Okay.
You could pop them just about anywhere.
Point is, there's going to be too much movement when you're trying to hold your camera in your hand to make a decent video. Is that kind
Now,
of what you're
there
getting at?
also are rigs that you could, external rigs, even for phones. I'm
Yeah.
assuming they make a big difference.
The benefit of the smaller camera is that you can get a smaller rig too.
True.
So if you
and less
do-
expensive.
Exactly. If you get a stabilizer, a gimbal that's motorized, they can be extremely stable, and you're not going to be like hating your arms after the day is over. There's definitely advantages there, but you really have to move up to the mirrorless at least before you start getting your inputs, outputs, and other features that are very important to video.
Yeah, please talk about that, about the peripherals that we mentioned earlier, but especially about recording, I mean, and external recorders and what you really need to make something decent.
One thing with 4K and the smaller camera bodies is that it generates a lot of heat. So we're seeing a lot of limitations. The RX100 Mark IV only does about 5 minutes before it shuts off because it doesn't want to get overheated.
Right.
We even see that on the A7R2 and A6300.
Yeah.
They had early overheating problems. So it's a big issue. And then when we're getting into other peripherals, the RX100 doesn't have a headphone out. It doesn't have a filter thread even, so you can't put NDs without using a third-party filter adapter. It's not until we get into the bridge cameras, which are basically the same size as a mirrorless camera, and then mirrorless cameras and DSLRs and above.
And large mirrorless cameras too.
Yeah.
We're not just talking about
Yeah. They also don't have the proper like hot shoes or anything like that. It's harder to find accessories for them. Mics don't really. There's nowhere to put them. It's interesting, but you really do have to move up if you want to start doing serious work.
Okay. So, given that, using 4K to make anything other than kind of a small little personal video, using 4K in a point and shoot, it's not really effective. Is that fair to say? I mean,
No, it can be effective, but I think they're great B cameras. But I wouldn't run out with one as my primary.
What about external recorders? I know that you can do audio independent and then sync it together down the line. What's with that?
Yeah, dual system sound. Josh, do you
Yeah,
want
no,
to-
I mean, you can get something like a Zoom H4n or a Tascam, things like that, and just have someone clap, at the beginning of each shot, or have a clapboard where we have more information about the shot and things like that. And you can either do it manually in Premiere or Final Cut, whatever program you're using, or there's even a program called Pluralize, and they find the sync points for you, and then they sync your audio and video straight away. So it takes a lot of the pain of having to do it.
Would it be safe to say that using an external recorder of that quality will probably give you a better soundtrack than using the sound system, the audio system built into the camera?
Yeah, without a doubt.
So that's something you might want to consider also if you're really doing something serious with sound and you want to do it externally.
Right. And we get a lot of people in the store that they want to add a shotgun mic, and they think that only adding a shotgun mic is going to be that's all they have to do.
It's a good start.
It's a good start. It'll help you with your guide track, using your camera as a guide track for audio. But if you want to get the most out of it, you want to have an external device for audio.
Okay,
But
good
if
points.
you really want to get the most out of it, you're going to need somebody else to run the audio.
Yeah, you
which
need a
is-
whole separate person. Yeah.
Okay. And we do sell those people at B&H, if I'm not mistaken, right? Yeah.
Yeah, you have to go around the back and
so I mean, we are kind of getting back to this idea that are you going to get 4K quality out of a point and shoot? Just the point and shoot camera.
I think the answer is you can.
If you buy this, and that,
you
and you have
Yeah,
an assistant.
4K opens you up into a whole other market where you have to get all these other accessories to complement just the 4K.
So let me ask you, if you were to get, say, the GH4 you mentioned,
Right.
and you deck it out with the external audio system and all the things you need, the right stabilizing system, okay, how does that ultimately compare to the cameras that cost 10 times, 20 times that amount of money? What, at the end of the day, when you're looking at the image quality, what's the difference between that affordable camera and the serious camera?
I've been following 4K and resolution and all the tech battles for the last few years, and quite frankly, it all looks the same to me, unfortunately. I'm hard pressed. If you show me 3 different videos shot by 3 different cameras, I could probably tell that they were shot by 3 different cameras, but I wouldn't be able to name which one. I wouldn't be able to tell you why I was able to tell that.
But Alan's you're talking about the GH4, which is, a quality 4K camera. And
Right.
I'm still trying to get to this idea where we have the,
Okay, let's
have like
let's
the
go
$160.
now
it's a
to
$450 point
Right.
and shoot.
Okay.
That's
so let me back. Let me rephrase it. It's okay. John's point. Go down to that and trick it out the best you can. What will the difference be? Now we're not specific, so I know it's a little bit
I
harder.
mean, and one of the things that I tell a lot of people in the store, and a lot of people even bring up to me, is that there was a film called Tangerine, I think a year or two ago, that was shot on an iPhone, iPhone 5, and it was accepted into Sundance. And I don't know if it won the grand jury prize, but it won some sort of reward at Sundance. And the iPhone 5 did not do 4K. It had this kind of weird special lens they made for it, but it depends on all kinds of other factors besides the codec and the bitrate and things like that in the camera. So in terms of having in like the ZS60, which is a pretty cool concept, anyone can afford it, but you're not shooting Star Wars on it.
And
Well, that's the whole thing. It's like, what is the content? In other words, I think this is true of any camera. If you understand the limitations of a camera, be it a phone or be it a full-blown DSLR, whatever you want, or the best mirrorless camera out there, if you work within the parameters of that piece of equipment, be it sound, audio, visual, whatever, you can do really good, beautiful work as long as you don't go beyond the limitations of that device. So
I
you can
agree,
shoot an award-winning film on an iPhone if you shoot it in the proper lighting and
Right.
environmental and aesthetic environment.
that's a
And you
whole-
spend how many years in post-production?
Right.
There you go. Yes, that's right.
And I think that's something that people don't understand, is that there's this whole other animal to creating content that's not just the gear. People hear, oh, Tangerine was shot on iPhone. I can shoot my phone with an iPhone, get in Sundance.
No, the person who
Kind
shot
of,
that understood
right.
the camera.
They knew what they were doing.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sure. Good point.
The main point I think there is when you show us the difference between a point and shoot video and a red, we can probably tell the difference. But who's your audience? When I was just home for the weekend and I was at my parents' house, they have like a 40-inch HD TV. And they're still flicking through the SD channels. And I'm like, come on, change to the HD channels. It looks so much better.
Yeah, I tell my parents all the time, you spent $500 on this TV, watch it in HD, you're paying for, for all this stuff, watch it in the, but,
And even if you do see the difference, you're not really going to care if it's a little bit noisier than maybe a red would be. You're not making that comparison when you're watching it. You are watching purely for the content.
Right.
All right, so again, this is my I'm just kind of repeating the same question over and over.
You're trying to keep us focused. Yeah,
I just want someone to tell me, is buying 4K in a point and shoot just marketing hype, or is there something valuable that you can do with that? And I'm not talking about somebody who wants their film to go to Sundance, but someone who and now we're talking about $400.
The person who's going on
Right.
vacation and they need a new camera and they want something that will shoot video, and now they hear this 4K. Is the average person going to know the difference between the 1080p or 1080i and 4K if they really don't even know what they're looking at?
I think John, when you mentioned the ZS60, which is a $450 4K point and shoot, when it comes to those types of cameras, I think it's a little bit of marketing. They can do it, and it probably looks pretty good.
If it's viewed on the proper device.
And shot by the right filmmaker.
Exactly. It probably will look pretty good, but then it's the point of 4K takes up more space on hard drives, fills up your SD card, so now you're buying bigger
Burns out your
cards.
That's something we
battery.
didn't talk about. You're filling up your cards quick. What about, it doesn't affect battery life or anything like that, does it?
It does.
Yeah.
It does.
Actually, a lot of the time it does, especially with these tiny point and shoots people bring on vacation. You don't even want them shooting 4K probably just to go to the beach with their family because they're going to be filling up their cards. Well, I mean, we might want them because then they come buy more cards. But but you're filling up your cards, you're running through battery. It's just not a great experience. And then people also won't be able to tell the difference between what would have been a full HD video and a 4K video.
Just to jump back a few minutes ago, you were talking about overheating problems with these cameras. Does heat, I know heat affects the image quality pretty rapidly once everything starts cooking up. Is 4K more bulletproof against heat? Was it more resistant to heat? Or does it start showing weirdness at about the same point, say, as a 1080 video would show it?
Well, as you have a higher resolution, so you have more detail. So you can, if you show it on a 1080 screen,
Yeah.
it'll hide it better, but it'll probably hide it to the same amount as a full HD video would.
Okay, all right.
But now that if you zoom in, you might see it faster than you would on a 1080, which doesn't have that clarity.
Okay, gotcha. All right.
It depends on the camera though, because I think at 1080, if the camera is a certain like temperature, you're going to see it regardless of the resolution.
Yeah.
So let's do that. Let's talk cameras a little bit specifically. I have a list here of the point and shoot categorized cameras with 4K, and maybe you guys can just give me your thoughts on them as I go down the list.
Jason, give him a drum roll on this.
The RX100 Mark IV, the RX10 III Mark III. Let's start with those two, the two Sony Cybershots.
In the RX10 too,
and the RX10 II. You're right, absolutely. I mean, they're great cameras anyway. We've talked about them in the past, and everyone knows they're good cameras. But in terms of 4K, would it be? I mean, you have the 4K, so at least you have it. That's good.
It's there. I actually know someone who uses the RX10, which I think the Mark II, as a B camera.
Yeah.
So they're using
Sean's got it right there,
they're
yeah.
using it professionally. They're not using it as their main camera, but they are using it semi-professionally. They get B shots, things like that.
Okay, all right. Their second camera.
Yeah.
And it edits smoothly. You don't see jarring jumps of imagery.
Yeah, I mean that also depends on grading. That's a whole other topic of discussion, I suppose.
I use the RX100 Mark IV as a B camera for my A7R II because I can set up the picture profiles just like the A7R, and then I can have it in my bag if I ever want to throw a second shot up, and I can stick it wherever I want, pretty much.
And you're comparing a 1-inch sensor to a full frame, so that's a pretty dramatic jump.
Yeah.
Okay.
But a lot of it has to do with color grading and in post. If you can make it work pretty well.
Okay, the Panasonic Lumix line, I'm seeing the FZ300, the ZS100, the FZ1000. Those are a little higher end. And then you jump down to the ZS60 and the LX100. Josh, you work with Panasonic a
Yeah,
lot.
I mean, I would put the LX100 actually in the higher end because it has the micro four thirds sensor, the same size as a lot of their mirrorless. The FZ1000 is pretty cool. It's similar to the Sony. It has a 1-inch sensor. It's got a little bit longer of a zoom, but it's not as good in low light because the aperture isn't constant. It's a 2.8 to 4, whereas the Sony it's a constant 2.8.
And if you were to look for a 4K, any of those 4K point and shoot?
Yeah, the LX100 is definitely the top of the point and shoots because it has a larger sensor, a little bit better of a lens, pretty good viewfinder, and has a little bit of a retro thing to it. It has the shutter speed dial on top and aperture on the lens, so it's very easy to control manually.
Full manual control, yeah. Okay. Leica, Deluxe, and
Well,
Velux.
those are Panasonics.
Yeah, effectively. Those are just rebadged Panasonics, effectively. So
I think the only thing different is the font in the menu. Is different.
Actually, I've actually been told, all joking aside, that there is actually a difference in the way they set the coloring. The Leica version has more neutral color. It's not punched up as the Panasonic.
There's definitely a difference
Yeah.
between how Leica processes their footage, their files and everything. But
I mean, but basically, yeah, it's rebadged. However, there is a difference. It's not just the logo.
They're also
Can they notice?
built nicer, and Leica probably took some features out because they like doing that. So
Yeah.
Okay. And now there's the Nikon DL series. I think they're all 4K, or is that true?
They are
Or
all 4K,
All 4K, okay. I guess we don't know much about them because they haven't really arrived
they
yet.
haven't shipped yet. Yeah.
And there's a couple of cool picks. The B700 and the A900, both pretty affordable, very affordable cameras. Any thoughts? Any insight on that?
If you look at all these lines, the one thing that I see is really good is a lot of these manufacturers focus on higher end point and shoots.
Right.
So they're targeting a different audience.
Yeah.
The LX100, the RX100, the RX10, Leica even, and with Nikon's DL series, they're priced appropriately. They have the features, they have the capabilities, and most average consumers aren't going to be buying those. They can, but there's also the lower end cameras.
Okay, so let's say the lower end. Let's say the A900. It's a $400 camera. I mean, would you ever buy that camera to shoot 4K?
I'd be skeptical, personally.
Okay. So then my next question then is, what would you guys buy to shoot 4K? And I know you guys are both pros, and you're going to want to jump up to a quality camera. But let's say your budget was limited to some degree, and you were trying to make a decision between a high-end point and shoot and a middle ground mirrorless where you could then change lenses. Where would you go, Josh?
I like one of the newer Panasonics, the GX85, mainly because it has internal stabilization. That's good for me because, like I said earlier, I use a lot of older, lenses, legacy lenses that don't have stabilization in them. So if I'm doing any kind of handheld work and we're running on the city, things like that, the in-body stabilization would help someone like me. And that could be a good primary camera if you have a little bit lower budget, or it could be a good B-roll camera to complement like the GH4.
Okay.
I would go probably, depending on my lens budget, which probably I'm assuming isn't too great in this situation, I would probably go with an RX10 Mark II. It's got that range, it's got the constant aperture, great run and gun camera, great form factor, and it has the features and capabilities. And then if you want to upgrade later on, you can pick up a camera to complement it.
Okay, so but that's a fixed lens camera.
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
Okay. All right, so you'd stick with the point and shoot, as it were. Yeah, and the A6300, I know you used that. That's taking it to another level, or
You definitely jump up. Like if I was choosing a camera, I would choose A7R2, A6300. It would be my top choices for that price range. But if I was limited in budget and like what I could do, I would definitely seriously consider the RX10 Mark II.
okay. Sounds good. All right, and then I guess we'll wrap it up with where are we going with high resolution digital? Is 8K right around the corner, and 4K is going to be the
Should we wait for
1080?
16K? That's what I want to know.
I mean, there's always going to be the next best thing that some of the REs, the higher end do 8K, 6K, things like that. Red has, I think, an 8K camera now too.
Yeah.
Panasonic, the rumored GH5 is even supposed to do maybe more than a 4K or something like that.
At
So
what
we'll
point
see.
does it not make a difference based on the resolving power of our eyes?
I think 4K.
Yeah, I think we're at it now.
Okay.
Because when we jumped from SD to HD, everybody agreed that was nice. It was a very nice jump. And now that we've gone from full HD to 4K, you can see the difference, and it affects with like consumer devices, TVs, even phones, because you're looking at it so close. But I think now we're getting to the point where you don't need much more.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think the consumer is going to be able to keep up with the emerging technology, upgrading a TV every 3 years or 2 years or something like that.
And I guess what is a 4K point and shoot missing to become the go-to camera for your soccer moms, people, besides talent?
It needs the larger sensor and a good lens. And
If you're talking about consumers, I think it's more you need the infrastructure behind it.
Yeah.
You like they're not going to go home and throw 4K footage into Premiere Pro and start cutting their footage for the next 3 hours and then export it and make sure everything is good. I think that's the limiting factor. And then a lot of people also don't have 4K TVs yet.
Right.
I don't even have a 4K screen in my house yet, in my apartment, and I shoot this.
But you know it's there.
I know it's there.
One of the big advantages of 4K is that you can pull a still image out of it and get a good print. So that's pretty important to me because screen grabs earlier than that, they were terrible pictures. They were usable for the net, but now all of a sudden we could do a screen. We could grab one frame from a video stream, and it's actually photo quality. So that's kind of a game changer in the way I see it. And how is that going to be affecting cameras down the line? I have a feeling like right now you'd buy a still camera that shot video. Now they're doing better video. Do you really still need a still camera if you have a 4K camera?
It depends on what you're shooting and where you're going to be viewing your content. Panasonic was, I think, the first to introduce the kind of 4K photo mode in their cameras, where you can actually, in the camera, save a frame of video as a photo. And there's ways that you can do pre-burst and different burst modes, things like that. So if you're doing a lot of sports shooting and you want to get really precise action shots, you can essentially shoot 30 frames per second. And that you want to talk about, precise. That's going to be very, very precise.
The major limitation compared to a stills dedicated camera would be probably resolution.
Right.
Because 4K, while it's high for video, it still equals about 8 megapixels when it comes to stills.
Okay, so you have an 8 meg file coming out of that, which is enough to do an 8x10 print, high quality, roughly.
Yeah, it's a nice size file, especially if you're a consumer and you're shooting like a soccer game, your kid's soccer game, and you just want to make sure you get the right shot. It helps. It can be a huge asset. But if we're talking about a real photographer who's selling prints and everything, I don't think it's going to cut it, especially since it's limited to just effectively JPEGs.
Oh, right. Okay.
Well, so the point is for that consumer videographer, it would be to buy a camcorder in 4K and then pull a still out, because mostly we're talking here about, primarily still cameras. So is that kind of what you're getting at, or?
You can do both.
Yeah.
I think since still cameras are the focus, it's interesting to see it on still cameras where it's actually probably better, I think, because people are actually going to be having that mindset of wanting a still instead of a video.
And is it easy on the post-production side to pull a still out of a video feed?
For the average person, probably not, because you have to know something about video software. But if we're talking about Panasonic cameras with their 4K photo modes, it's in camera. So it's really quick, intuitive. Just tap it on the screen, usually touch screen.
You just tap the spot where you paused.
Yeah,
and
you tap the
turn-
frame that you want to save, and it'll give you the option to do you want to save it as a photo. And just
And when you're on your playback on a Panasonic like that, you can go frame to frame.
yeah, you essentially
on your
play it
video?
almost like a semi slow motion kind of thing. Play it frame for frame.
It's a flip book.
Yeah.
Essentially, yeah.
Okay, so there you have it. Thank you to Shawn. Thank you to Josh. Thank you to my co-host and my producers, John Harris and Jason Tables. If you enjoy our show, rate us and leave a review on iTunes. We appreciate the feedback because it helps us make the show that much better. And as always, thank you so much for tuning in today.